And if his legal issues don't take him off the ballot, maybe his poll numbers will. A new survey shows Trump is losing support rapidly, dropping like a rock.
And his favorability ratings have never been great, nor as strong as his job approval ratings. But if you look at those favorability ratings, when we sit here and talk about all the things that he's doing and wondering why it doesn't seem to catch up to him, he now has a favorability rating that's collapsed down to 25%. And actually lost 4 percentage points post-indictment. And all the numbers that we saw in this ABC News Ipsos poll showed really what Chris Christie said was true. There's no such thing as a good indictment. People can whistle past a political graveyard and say, oh, the indictment's going to help him. At the end, you look up and down on this ABC poll, which I suspect will be like all the other polls. It's all bad news for him, especially the fact that only 1 in 4 Americans now have a favorable impression of him.
25%, you're starting to dip into being a fringe political candidate. 25% is just a terrible number if you're trying to win a general election. Now, again, his numbers inside the primary are good. We understand that. But the goal is to win the general election. I think that's why, just even in the last week, looking at the arraignment that we saw last week, looking at the result in Wisconsin, looking at this new ruling out of Texas on abortion, there are a whole lot of people, even when the Republican Party now is saying out loud, we got to figure out another way. 25%, this guy can't win. So we're not saying he can't win or that he won't win, but the numbers are very bad for Donald Trump. And so you are hearing more and more, this isn't going to work. What else do we have?
Well, let's bring in right now former White House press secretary and MSNBC host Jen Psaki. Jen, you look at those numbers along with John Heilemann. Jen, you look at the 25%. I've never seen that number attached to any candidate who was actually the leading contender for his party or her party's nomination. And I do wonder if it's sometimes when you have favorability ratings collapsing to 25%, which means 3 in 4 Americans do not have a favorable impression of him, if we actually start seeing that trickle down to the base, who suddenly, maybe after all these years, realizes that Donald Trump is not good for the Republican Party. He's not good for the conservative movement. He can't win elections anymore.
Right. I mean, and also you see 25% sometimes you would see maybe for a candidate who's on the rise, who people still don't know yet. But everybody knows Donald Trump. He has 100% approval rating or something like that. So that's his other problem here, right? There aren't undecided voters who may come his way. I think, Joe, remember back in November, he had a drop, right? DeSantis had a rise after the November elections because it was very clear at that point in time that he was a loser. I mean, he was supporting losers. That has faded a little bit in terms of people being as concerned because DeSantis hasn't appeared to be as strong as some in the Republican base wanted him to be. So maybe if there's a clear alternative, people will go for them. But right now, there isn't one. So that, I think, is the challenge for a lot of these Republican candidates, senators who are running for re-election, people who want to take out Democrats. They need somebody who's strong at the top, and it's really not clear who that might be.
Well, I mean, that's a great point. John Heilemann, there are a lot of people that may have an unfavorable impression of Donald Trump in the Republican Party, Republican primary voters, but give them Donald Trump or a Democrat, they're going to vote for Donald Trump. It's an old yellow dog Democrat thing. They'd even vote for a yellow dog if they were a Democrat in the old South. In this case, though, favorability sitting at 25%. I know that's not the same thing as approval rating, but his favorability collapsing to 25%. Man, it just proves what you've been saying, what so many people have been saying. Yeah, he may be able to win a Republican primary, but there's just not any way this guy's going to win a general election unless some really dramatic things shift.
I mean, look, there's a lot of time between now and November of 2024, Joe, and you know, God knows the rule in our politics now is unpredictability and stuff that we never imagined happening happening. Having said that, I mean, I was sitting here scratching my head trying to think about the last time we saw a major politician in America, someone who was either a leading candidate for a nomination or a sitting president or a kind of leader of a party who had numbers this bad. And as I listened to my friend Jen Psaki, it came to me, the last time we saw this was George W. Bush at the end of the Bush presidency in 2008. With the financial crisis on top of him, and 8 years of finally people had played out, Bush fatigue had set in. And you thought about what that meant for the Obama campaign in 2008 when all of the negativity of an outgoing president in George W. Bush transferred itself onto John McCain. It was like, the McCain campaign had a lot of problems, but one of the problems it had was that incredibly unpopular at that point, that incredibly unpopular president sitting in the White House. That's the last time I've seen a number in the 20s, sitting at 25. And, again, think about what that meant back in 2008. So I think Republicans, with the same old story, if you're a rational Republican and you want to win in 2024, is it possible Donald Trump could win? It's possible. Anything's possible. But, man, the weight of the evidence is getting to be so dispositive, so overwhelming, and I think you guys are right. There's just no world in which, you were going to get the people who love you around Donald Trump. His getting indicted makes them angrier than ever at the deep state. For anybody else, it's like that guy's just got is an albatross around our neck, and we got to get rid of it if we're going to win.